So demonstrating Flask interacting with JavaScript. So what Flask does, and I'd have to go back to my own implementation of that. So we can run Flask test. This is an incomplete version with a less pretty thing. But let's see how that works. So we can get, okay, we have the, say we have the user's request, the API users. So this is the request. So we can put a breakpoint here and we can run Flask in debug mode. And that should give me a little bit. Let's go, okay. This gives me the URL. Yes. And now we see that it's actually stuck. This is stuck because in our JavaScript, we were actually invoking Flask. So let's just run this for now and we can actually see what is going on there. So this gets our stuff. Let's open the developer tools. So in our developer tools, we have our JavaScript. So we can, this is the files. Let's make this a little bit more visible. So what we find here is that, so let's reload the page. Now we see we have our JavaScript. In this JavaScript, we are now creating a web page request. So when we look at Flask, it's all fine. It's just running. The debugger is not active. So in our script, we're now here creating a new request object. We make this request object open a particular URL. This is a get request on the URL API/users/page, whatever the page number is, which is 1 in our case. We can see that from the local scope. And I'm not sure what the true parameter means here. So that will make our request, and so create our request. This again does not yet execute it. So when we go F10, we go to the next line. We can, when we look at Flask, we still see that it has not done anything. Then we run again. We define the onload function, so we tell it what needs to happen when it's loaded. So let's put a breakpoint there. So if that is called, we know something what to do about that. And now we are actually going to send this request to the server. And then our JavaScript, so this will just create a send request. Note that we just continue. This request is just created. It will be executed asynchronously by our browser. So when we do go to the next, it goes to the end of init page, but that was where it was called, and end of that, and this goes to the end of the script. And now we are getting into browser-specific stuff. So we don't care about that. What we can see now is that Flask has now actually received the request. So we have the request for our page. Okay, oh, yes. To keep things easy, PyCharm has different shortcuts. One thing you can do is you can actually debug inside PyCharm. There is a plugin you can put in your Chrome that allows you to debug web pages. I have it for IntelliJ. I'm not sure if I enabled it for PyCharm. But it is possible to do it, and then of course all the user experience is consistent. So where here in PyCharm we can see the variables here. So it's basically similar functionality. The PyCharm debugger is a little bit more advanced. And basically we get this functionality, so we return the page. And now we see that suddenly our DevTools has popped open again, and we see that we we are now here. It has returned the JavaScript has received the result. And now what we say, okay, what is the ready state? So, oh, I want to know what that ready state was. That's where we can use watches. So let's do HHR. That was the name we gave to our XML HTTP request. That's a bit too tedious. So what we want to do is ready state. That was 4. Okay. And what is the XHR status? The status should be 200. So yes, we know we have this. We have a response text. Let's look up what the response text is. Or let's get rid, because another thing that we can do is we can look at the console. So XHR, the response text, that just does a one-off of this. So this is the data. This is the response text that we got. Basically, this big old PyCharm stuff. So we can look at the console here as well. It might be possible to put it in a tab in the bottom. I'm not sure if that's possible. So then we get the object of user. So this has been translated into an object now, and then you can call it, calls the render function users. Here we can say, okay, we go into this function. So this will, because if we go over, we just go to the next line. Where we go into the render users function. The first actual line that does anything there is line 24. So this will make that work. And I can't. Yeah, let me have a quick look if I can actually. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can easily zoom the text size. So no, I don't think I can zoom it. So we'll have to live with it not being very big. But this is basically, so now we are here, and then you do the rendering as I showed you before. So this is how it interacts. So the JavaScript makes a request to the server written in Flask, Python Flask, and the server calculates a response, returns that response. Flask will take care of actually. So Flask, basically, what you do here is that you basically tell Flask, when you get a request on this API, this URL, call this function and then use the result to provide the answer. So you can also say, if you want to have a different response code, you could do a comma, whatever the response code needs to be. There's different response values that it can handle in different ways. So you do that, Flask will receive the request, it will execute the function accordingly, it will then return the result, and then your browser receives that. The browser then calls the onload code once the thing has been received, and the onload code can then handle the whatever was received from that request. That's how it interacts. And that server can be anywhere. That could be Regress, which lives somewhere on the internet we don't know, or it can be on your local computer. But another thing to realize there is that your HTML, so that even if you run Flask on your local computer, there's no reason that it couldn't work, say, from your phone. You figure out your local computer's IP address and go to the right port, it should work. Although I haven't checked that Flask listens to all ports or only on localhost. If it listens only on localhost, then it will not receive those connections. But you can should be able to fairly easy make it listen to all ports by making it listen to port. The IP address 0000 is used to say any port. That's convention that the operating system will respect, and then listen to any port that you have, be aware that is a security issue if you're not behind the firewall. That's possibly why it says it listens to the local host. But you can open it with your phone and see that it is actually a proper web server, which always makes you feel nicer.